Hello, this is Polkagatos, and in this video I want to show you the final result of the house with all the weathering, which took like hours, and that is also the reason why I didn't upload the videos. As you can see, the model of the building looks much more realistic now with the weathering techniques, and it really looks as if it is an older building, and it doesn't look brand new anymore. Unfortunately, the quality of the camera is not too well, but you might notice that there is green moss here on the bottom, and a little bit here too, where the water wheel will come, because this is a water mill. And on the roof there is a lot of greens as well. I don't know if I can show you very well. No, the light makes it worse, but you might probably see it that there's greens on it. I did lots of moss everywhere with brown mixed, but you should be careful when you weather. Should do a little bit at a time. And also I put a mixture of brownish gray again on the walls, and it was a very watery washing. Means you put a lot of water in the paint, and then it goes in all the gaps, your brownish gray, and you leave it to soak in for a little while, and then you take off most of it with a paper towel there where you want it, and then you get these highlights, and you get the structure of the stones very accentuated like that. That's how it works. And I did the same with the roof, and once it was all dry, I did the same with the road even. You need to, when you are making your scenery, you need to weather everything. The trees, the rocks, everything should be weathered, because otherwise you can't put, to keep it short, you can't put a building which looks like brand new into a landscape, unless you want it to look brand new. But it is quite a disillusion when you would put something brand new. It would look not authentic. It would look more like fake. And if you want to have this nostalgic effect in your scenery, you should try to look everything old. And also one tip when you make your scenery is that make it alive by, for example, in this case, I added firewood here under I glued lots of firewood here under the roof. These firewoods, in the beginning, I wanted to use uh, small, tiny little branches from a hedge, which was beechwood, but I discovered they were still too thick. And as you can see, my finger, these ones are really small. And this is, guess what? This is roots from a tree, which I dried first for like 2 months, and then I cut them very carefully. You could cut it with a knife. If you do it with a scissor, they get flat because they are flexible, and then you have to make them round again. So it's maybe better to do it with a knife. As you can see, they are very small. You see this is my index finger, and it's really small. But this adds some life to your model. Imagine there would not lay anything around there. It would look like there's nobody living there, and that's not realistic. Then I'm going to put some firewood here on the ground. It will be ground here next to the stones. This is a stone track, and it will be ground here, and I will put lots of firewood unorganized on a little mountain, and an axe I will put there, so that you really see that there is people living there. The model comes alive. And I will put some tiny little barrels here, which are plastical ones. In this case, I bought some plastic barrels from a kit, which was very cheap, uh, which I will put here. And this makes a model alive, and yeah, that's most of it to be said. And also the weathering makes it alive, that you see really that this building is standing in nature for a while, and the moss is a sign that it's an atmosphere which is quite moist, wet. It's always raining there, and there's lots of trees around the house, so that doesn't make it any better because of the trees. There's not enough ventilation probably, and then your building gets green. And here, this is the weathering here, the greens here, which are not very visible on the camera. The greens, they are a sign of moss too, because there is water here next to it with the water mill, and so there's all the time water coming against this wall because of the water mill, and that's logical that there's green then there. So that makes your model alive. And the same weathering technique I did with the bridge. Then I waited a little bit too long when I put the brownish gray in it to weather it, and when removing it, then I was too late, and then it got a bit darker. But still, I did the weathering techniques. Unfortunately, it is not visible on the camera. Probably you can't see it. And it is not a very bright day today, but here you can see some green on it, especially here. You look here, you can see it very well that there's green because there's the river, and sometimes the level of the water is a little bit higher. When it's raining more, the level goes up from the water of the river. And so I did the weathering technique also in the insides, some green at the bottom. And as you can see, green here on the bottom and green here. And I did on top, but you probably can't see it. I did here on top lots of moss, and on the road moss and probably imitation of grass. So it makes it in harmony. It will make that it will be in harmony with the landscape around it. When you are weathering, and I know that I told you before, you have to weather the whole landscape. That includes the trees, and these trees I didn't do yet. These are first, I made them myself. They're not the best looking ones, but I tried. These are pine trees, and the first thing I made them from wire with some natural fibers from a rope. And when the first thing I did was, after I turned them in with the wire, with the fibers, I brushed a kind of mixture of white glue with water, 50-50, and sprinkled sawdust on directly on it when it was still wet, and the excess I shake off. And then I arranged the branches that they look more or less like I wanted them to look, and then I let them dry overnight. The next day I spray paint them black, and now I did them with gray green, brown gray green. This is a basic color. And then after you could start to give them highlights with lighter greens. But you should never use you should never use greens that are too bright, unless it's spring. For example, I did these ones, and these ones I did them too bright, but again, the quality of the camera is probably not the best. The colors, yes, you can see it now. You can see it a bit that it is green. And I gave them highlights, but these are painted in a green which is a bit too unnatural. So I will have to put some olive green on it, or gray green, like these ones, and these ones are a little bit too dark, so I have to give them highlights with the green, which is a bit lighter. And they will add, and then with the rocks and with these trees, they will add a lot of realism to our model. They they will they will make the model alive. Look, moment, so that you can see how it would look like. It makes the model alive. Trees and rocks and hills and little mountains and the river. It will make that the model becomes alive. Well, there are some good tutorials here on YouTube on how to make pine trees, so I don't think I'm going to make a serial of videos on how to make pine trees. And mine are not that good looking. They are okay. I'm already happy I made these, but I am far from perfect. I need to practice more turning them, especially the tops. Some of the tops are a total. This one, for example, there are too many of these. I have to cut them away. You have to make a nice point at the top, and I should concentrate on that and work a little bit less quick. Still, these are very cheap to make. They don't cost you practically anything, just some wire and the rope even I got for free, and just some paint and glue. And the glue is dirty cheap where I can find it. I pay for a quarter liter. I pay like €1.70, which is very cheap in these times. And what I wanted to say is, well, I just continue with the project. I will make now defensive fortification walls for a little city and a church and things like that. But I do that in between of all the other work which I'm doing. It's a lot of work. It's just a hobby and it should stay a hobby. I hope I inspired you, and good luck with your projects as well. Goodbye.